carbon pricing. And so the Conservatives spend so much time defending oil and gas industry. So why are they fighting against a policy that even the CEO say is good for Canada?
Member for Portage Lisgar, a very brief answer.
I am happy to fight against crazy, radical policy ideas that will diminish our economic growth in this country. The fact that they view wealth creation as a bad thing, that jobs are a bad thing, I will stand up against that proudly every day in this chamber, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member will have 2.5 minutes to finish the question and comments part of his speech. Statements by members. Déclaration des députés. The honourable member for St. John Rothsay.
Madam Speaker, it's an honour to rise today to recognize one of Southern New Brunswick's best, Senator Joseph Day. Joe grew up in Hampton, New Brunswick. He attended CMR in Saint Jean and then on to RMC, where he graduated in engineering, then pursuing law at Queen's University and a master's degree at Osgoode Hall Law School. Joe spent his entire career largely in law, which included roles at JDI, chair of the New Brunswick Forest Products Commission, and an intellectual property law practice. In 2001, Joe got the call to serve in the Senate. For 19 years, Senator Day proudly represented New Brunswick. Always working with all sides and a strong commitment to Southern New Brunswick, Joe led positive change at every level. I'm proud to have called him a friend, as I know many in this House did. So to Joe's family and friends, in particular his wife Georgie, his children Emily and Fraser, I want to extend our deepest condolences on behalf of everyone in the House of Commons. Thank you.
The honourable member for Sherwood Park for Saskatchewan.
Liberal government incompetence is undermining the ability of Canadian development organizations to support the world's most vulnerable people. Afghanistan and other terrorist-controlled areas around the world are often among the poorest. Canadian tax dollars go to large UN-affiliated multilateral organizations present in these areas, but private Canadian organizations are generally barred from working in the same areas. Recognizing this problem, MPs from all parties came together more than a year ago to negotiate, amend, and then adopt Bill C-41. Not perfect, but this bill created an authorization regime to allow private organizations to go work in these hard-hit areas. We understood the urgency of getting this assistance to Afghanistan before another winter. Unbelievably, these Liberals have failed to implement this bill for over a year. No authorization, no applications, no help. What a disgrace. The bill had a one-year review deadline, but after a year, there's literally nothing to review. This probably won't make the headlines, but people on the other side of the world will die because Liberal government incompetence blocked private development assistance from getting to them.
The honourable member from Mississauga East Cooksville.
Speaker, let this House of Commons congratulate Carolyn Parrish as our newly elected Mayor of Mississauga. Mayor Parrish's election is a testament to her unwavering dedication, passion, and tireless efforts to serve our community. Throughout Mayor Parrish's career, she has demonstrated deep commitment to the people of Mississauga, always striving to improve the lives of residents and making our city a better place for everyone. Mayor Parrish, your vision for Mississauga is one that resonates with all of us. A city that is inclusive, innovative, and forward-thinking. We've seen your dedication in action, from your advocacy for housing to your efforts in fostering community engagement and addressing the needs of all citizens. Our Mississauga colleagues and I look forward to our continued collaboration as we build an even brighter future for Mississauga. We're excited to see all that we can accomplish together and the positive impact that you and Council will make on our great city. Congratulations once again, Mayor Carolyn Parrish.
Here, here.
The honourable member for Saint Jean. I would like to celebrate the success of an incredible local athlete. Yannick Lemuel has been an avid track and field athlete from a very young age and has won numerous titles, including world champion in the Masters 60-meter hurdles in Torun in 2023. But just as important, if not more so, than his individual achievements is his involvement in the community and how he shares and passes on his love of the sport. In Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu, he passes on his enthusiasm to athletes aged 7 to 78, who he coaches on a regular basis. At École Secondaire du Triolet and Université de Sherbrooke, he mentors promising young athletes. And lastly, at the Marie Rivier School, he works with children with multiple disabilities, for who he also organizes Olympics. Despite his jam-packed schedule, April, Yannick Lemuel finds time to continue his training and will take part in the Pan American Championships in Cleveland in July and in the World Championships in Gothenburg, Sweden in August. Mr. Lemuel, we wish you all the best for your upcoming competitions. The Honourable Member for Orléans.
Mr. Speaker, I have the pleasure of rising to acknowledge the vital role long-term care institutions hold in our communities and recognizing the incredible leaders, staff and families who support the thousands of Canadians who live in long-term care homes. J'ai eu le privilège de travailler.
I had the privilege of working in the retirement residence sector for over 20 years. I saw with my own eyes the remarkable work that healthcare professionals do to ensure that residents receive quality care and a good quality of life.
It's my hope, Mr. Speaker, that one day soon we will be able to mark June 13 as National Long-Term Care Day in Canada. A special thank you to the Canadian Association for Long-Term Care for their important work, advocacy, and their support as we begin the process of creating a National Long-Term Care Day in Canada. Merci.
The Honourable Member from Northumberland, Peterborough South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, business owners across this country are facing unprecedented challenges, including the most anti-business government seen in a generation. The good news is it wasn't like this before this Prime Minister, and it won't be like it after. Conservatives recognize what small business owners are, and that's economic heroes. They start with a dream to make their communities a little better by sharing their gift with the world. To start their businesses, they often risk everything, putting their life savings, even their family home, up for grabs. They'll work 60, 70, even 80 hours a week, all just to turn around and do it all over again. When times are tough, like now, they'll often do without so their employees don't have to. Canada will emerge from our lost decade of nearly zero GDP per capita growth. And Canada will again become a land of prosperity as Conservatives recognize business owners for what they are, our economic heroes.
The Honourable Member from Brampton East.
Mr. Speaker, as you may be aware, the 2024 Summer Olympics are next month in Paris. Our Team Canada athletes are a beacon of inspiration for our country, and they bring us so much pride and unity. In this spirit, I want to recognize some of our very talented athletes from Brampton who have shown excellence in sports while representing Canada. Athletes like Michael Capella, who competed in last year's Santiago Games in rowing, Scarlett Delgado, a champion boxer, Kamika Bingham, a 100-meter sprinter, and who can forget Brampton native Cassie Campbell, a two-time gold medalist and first female athlete to be inducted into Canada's Sports Hall of Fame. Their dedication and hard work have made our community proud. I know we are all looking forward to watching our incredible athletes from across Canada compete in the Paris Olympics. Please join me in wishing all of Team Canada the best of luck. Go, Canada, go!
The Honourable Member from Vancouver Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Vancouver has a vibrant and innovative cultural scene known for its firsts in Canada. Ballet BC ranks number 3 in North America. The VSO, Vancouver Symphony, students play solos and complex pieces alongside the professional orchestra on the Day of Music last weekend with 5 free venues across the city. Now they plan to merge performances of dance, symphony, and opera to excite and titillate. Whether it's student dancers from Arts Umbrella on stage with Ballet BC or Bard on the Beach bringing Shakespeare in modern pop format to audiences. Whatever the performing art, Vancouver is building growing awareness of the arts to young and diverse viewers. We have full houses for live performances in my city. Vancouver is no hick town, colleagues. It rocks the Canadian art scene.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lobinière. Mr. Speaker, the tramway would cost about $28,000 per family in the Greater Quebec City area. Can you imagine that This $11 billion bill is scrupulously supported by the Bloc Québécois. Another example among many, they also support the $500 billion in centralizing and inflationary spending by big Liberal government in Ottawa. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc Québécois does not stand for the regions, and it is endorsing the war on cars right alongside this Prime Minister, thus ignoring what people really need. The leader of the Conservative Party of Canada understands and respects people who live in suburbs and regions. Our leader is saying yes to an absolutely necessary troisième lien, third link, just as the previous Conservative government said yes and built the new Champlain Bridge. The common sense Conservatives will continue to respect Quebec drivers by supporting a third link for cars. Metropolitan Quebec and the Chaudière-Appalaches regions, including all of eastern Quebec, deserve this cross-river link for the economic security of half of Quebec. Let's save our economy. Let's support those who work in the goods and services sectors and who are building Quebec.
The honourable member from Whitby.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to give a shout out to Whitby's graduating class of 2024. You're the generation that's going to change the game. Don't just dream big, dream bold. Dream like you're the only one who can change the game because you can. Think about how you can make a difference, how you can leave your mark. You're the ones who will disrupt the status quo, who will innovate, who will create, and who will lead with passion and purpose. You're the ones who will make a difference, who will make some noise, and who will make it happen. As you close this chapter and embark on your next adventure, remember to chase your dreams, embrace new experiences, and never stop learning. Your voice is powerful. Don't be afraid to speak up, to speak out, and to be loud. Canada needs change makers like you, and your time is now. So make your mark, make a difference, and make us proud.
The honourable member from King Vaughan.
Mr. Speaker, pasta fagioli is an Italian meal served for centuries. Today, with the increase in the price of tomatoes by 63%, it is now a delicacy that is very expensive to make. The Parliamentary Budget Officer told Canadians that the Prime Minister had placed a gag order on his office blocking the release of the economic impact on the carbon tax. As a result of pressure from the common sense Conservatives, the Liberal government was finally forced to reveal the fact that the carbon tax will cost Canadians $30.5 billion by 2030. The Liberals have been hiding this report for years. It's time to clean and release the report. Italian lovers of pasta fagioli want to know so they can continue that tradition. Viva a tutte le italiane!
The honourable member from Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years, this costly coalition simply isn't worth the cost. This incompetent finance minister is squiggling and squirming to find money to pay for her uncontrolled inflationary spending. Her latest idea? Raising taxes on doctors, home builders, entrepreneurs, and farmers. Taxing doctors means it's harder to find one. Taxing home builders means fewer homes. Taxing small business means fewer paychecks. And taxing farmers drives up food costs. Canada's food processor said that to suggest this change only affects a minimal number of Canadians is misleading. It actually affects a lot of businesses, including in the agri-food sector, starting with farmers. Businesses, jobs, doctors, and food production will leave Canada. Everyone left behind will pay the price with fewer jobs and higher costs for everything. This is the opposite of fair. This is unfair. Conservatives will restore Canada to a country where hard work earns powerful paychecks that buys affordable food, gas, and homes in safe neighborhoods. It's time for a change. Let's bring it home.
The honourable member from Vaudreuil-Soulanges.
Mr. Speaker, any list of great Canadians should include the late Harold Thomas Herbert. Born in England in 1922, Hal served with the Royal Air Force as a fighter pilot during the Second World War, service that earned him the Distinguished Flying Cross. En 1948,
in 1948, he moved to Canada, where he settled in a small town called Hudson and started a family with the love of his life, Marion Lemieux-Hébert. He ran in the federal election and, in 1972, won a seat in the House of Commons, representing the riding of Vaudreuil, the same riding I proudly represent today.
Adding to his legacy, Mr. Speaker, was this. In 1982, he tabled a private member's bill that received royal assent to formally name July 1st Canada Day. The change from Dominion Day, he felt, would serve to bring Canadians together, Anglophones and Francophones, in his riding of Vaudreuil-Soulanges alike. To honor his achievements, this July 1st, the town of Hudson will add Hal Herbert's image to the Canada 150 mural and honor him in a ceremony, a fitting tribute to a good man who devoted his life to serving those around him. Happy Canada Day, Hal!
Happy Canada.
The honourable member from Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
Mr. Speaker, living with a disability should not mean being legislated into poverty. Yet this is exactly the reality for too many. In my riding of Nanaimo, Ladysmith, I hear the heartbreaking stories of people choosing between life-saving medication or food on the table, between a roof over their heads or covering the cost of transportation. Mr. Speaker, over 1 million Canadians live with disabilities. Because of the advocacy of many and the NDP along their side, there was a glimmer of hope, yet short-lived, because despite the Liberals' promise to lift Canadians with disabilities out of poverty, they most definitely have not. $6 a day, Mr. Speaker, does not even scratch the surface of what is needed. People living with disabilities deserve to live with dignity and respect. We have an opportunity to lift Canadians out of poverty. I will continue to work day in and day out to represent my constituents, but I'm not alone. The NDP will work for people living with disabilities to make sure no more people living with disabilities are living in poverty. Thank you.
L'honorable député de Drummond.
The honourable member for Drummond. And to think that on Monday morning, we're still going to have to get up, but our mornings will never be the same. After 30 years of AM shows and 20 years at the helm of the most listened to program in Quebec and in all of Canada, Paul Arcand is leaving the incredible, legendary 98.5 morning show, Puisqu'il faut se lever. But don't worry, he is not retiring. He is just leaving to take on new challenges. Paul Arcand is always connected to his leaders, always in tune with Quebecers, politicians, many of them here in this room, decision makers, leaders of all stripes. Everyone who appeared on his show knew that they had better watch their step and choose each and every word carefully. There's no room for double talk, intellectual shortcuts, or half-truths with Paul Arcand. He was all about getting to the bottom of things, and what a bandmaster. What a great team that succeeded in captivating us day after day after day for 20 years. Thank you, Paul Arcand, for these incredible years. Thank you for always being there with us and for us. May your future be bright and full of new projects. We can't wait.
The honourable member from York Simcoe.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years, Canadians can be forgiven for thinking it can't get much worse than this. But this NDP Liberal government has proven them wrong again, this time with a job-killing tax hike on small businesses, farmers, healthcare, and home building. Experts have called it misleading to suggest this change only affects a minimal number of Canadians, when it actually affects countless small businesses, including farmers. This tax hike puts the family farm across Canada at risk, jeopardizing the backbone of our agricultural sector. It will result in even higher grocery costs. This economic vandalism is the last thing our country needs. Instead, Conservatives will restore the promise of Canada by making our taxes lower, simpler, and fair for farmers and all Canadians.
The honourable member from Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, Davenport residents are heartbroken. At around 8 a.m. on Sunday, June 9, our beloved St. Anne's Anglican Church was tragically destroyed in a fire, the cause of which has not yet been determined. Built in 1907, St. Anne's Church was one of the oldest Anglican churches in Toronto. It was not only an architectural triumph, but also a rebel of its time. Modeled after the Hagia Sophia, it was built in the Byzantine style, when the accepted style at the time was Gothic. In addition, the interior of St. Anne's was decorated by members of the famed Canadian group of 7 artists. St. Anne's, to our community, was more than a beautiful church. It was music, it was community, it was service. My heart goes out to Reverend Don Bayers, the St. Anne's congregation, and the entire community for this tragic loss. But we know that after the darkest part of the night comes the light, and St. Anne's will rise bigger and better. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions. Questions orales.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. The economic vandalism of this Prime Minister and the carbon tax cover-up have been exposed today. After Conservative pressure, the government finally revealed the data that was missing. The real cost of their carbon tax above the cost at the pump is $30 billion. Nearly $2,000 for every Quebec family. The government has tried to destroy the parliamentary budget officer's reputation to hide this information. Why? The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've already agreed in this House that math isn't the Conservative Party's strong suit, especially the leader of the Conservative Party. I know that counting above 6 is hard for him. That's the number of affordable housing units that he built when he was Minister of Housing. But the data prove it. I have them here. 8 out of 10 families receive more from the carbon price than they pay. And in addition, the Parliamentary Budget Officer confirmed that 25 million tons in reductions are thanks to the carbon price. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, this minister hid data that show $30 billion in cost for the Canadian economy every year. In Quebec, it's $5 billion. According to line 17, column AN. Yes, a cost for Quebecers, and the Bloc has voted for increasing this tax. Why has the government tried to destroy the reputation of the Parliamentary Budget Officer when he was telling the truth? The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Once again, Mr. Speaker, we have evidence of the ignorance of the Conservative Party of Canada on the issue of climate change, because the carbon price at the federal level does not apply to Quebec. The Quebec system is in place. There are members of the Conservative Party, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition just needs to look around him. 3 rows behind him, just a little bit to his left. He'll be able to talk to someone who voted in favor of the carbon price in Quebec, Mr. Speaker. So he just needs to ask for explanations. If he can't provide them, I will. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The economic vandalism and carbon tax cover-up of this government has now been exposed because of relentless Conservative pressure. The government finally leaked out to the CBC the economic hit Canada will take, originally reported at $20 billion. With inflation, it's $30 billion a year, or almost $2,000 for every single family in Canada, something they tried to silence the Parliamentary Budget Officer from exposing. How can we believe anything this Minister of Environment has to say on taxes?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As my honourable colleague and friend, the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources, often says in this House, the Conservative Party of Canada are entitled to their opinion, not their own sets of facts, Mr. Speaker, and the facts are clear. 8 out of 10 Canadian families get more money back from carbon pricing than it cost them. And not only that, Mr. Speaker, but the data also shows that carbon pricing is already responsible for the reduction in pollution level by 25 million tons. That's half of our emission reduction so far, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It's not my numbers, it's his numbers.
Exactly.
His own department just released data moments ago showing that the real cost will be $30 billion in hit to our economy. This is above and beyond the direct cost at the pumps and on people's heating bills. Now, when the Parliamentary Budget Officer said this, he denied it. He tried to gag the Parliamentary Budget Officer and shut him up completely. completely. Why did this minister try to hide the facts and punish a legitimate, hard-working public servant who tried to tell the truth?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think we've established in this House that math was not the forte of the Leader of the Opposition, and that he has a hard time counting past 6, Mr. Speaker, which is the number of social housing he did when he was Minister responsible for housing. But the facts are clear. 8 out of 10 Canadian families get more money back from carbon pricing than the pricing system costs. Not only that, but carbon pricing is responsible for half of our emission reduction, 25 million tons less pollution in the atmosphere in Canada because of carbon pricing, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
That 8 out of 10 fact does not include the $30 billion of economic costs. That is $2,000 of additional costs for every single family. When we exposed that, he denied it. When the parliamentary budget officer reported on it, they attacked him and tried to gag him. Mr. Speaker, that minister is not worth the economic vandalism. We cannot believe a word he says about taxes. He needs to resign. When will the Prime Minister fire him?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources and Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I noted in the discussion yesterday the Leader of the Opposition's newfound respect for economists. But let me tell him, 300 economists, in addition to the PBO, say 8 out of 10 Canadians get more money back. It works directly inverse to income. This Leader of the Opposition ignores the costs of climate change. Mr. Speaker, here are the facts. His climate plan is to let the planet burn. It is to ignore the economic opportunities associated with the energy transition. And look, this is a fellow who ran in the last campaign on putting in place a carbon price. Who is telling the truth?
Order. Order.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. In the supplementary estimates of the budget, this government wants to allocate an additional $3.5 million for medals to mark the transition of the Crown in Canada to Charles III. Yet, there was already more than $22 million earmarked for this. May seem like $22 million too much, but the Governor General didn't think it was enough. 15% more was needed, she thought, and the government agreed. They've got one last chance to wake up before next week's vote. Will they withdraw these votes and avoid wasting millions of dollars on monarchist trinkets? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, I know the Bloc is not very interested by this, but there are Canadians who care about our history and who want to recognize that our sovereign, who passed away, was the Queen of the Commonwealth for over 70 years. This is a tradition in Canada when it happens. There are medals produced and distributed for those interested in it. So, Mr. Speaker, we respect traditions, and it's unfortunate for the Bloc. Most of them refused to have people in their own ridings receive this. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. What's worse, the extra $3.5 million for medals bearing the effigy of Charles III are in the same votes as the funds finally released for drinking water for Indigenous communities, which could have used the extra money. It's pathetic. Frankly, when you consider that Quebecers and even a majority of Canadians want nothing to do with the monarchy, that's a lot of people who think this money would have been better used in Indigenous communities. Will the government withdraw this money from the votes while there's still time? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, we see that the Bloc is still looking to create arguments with these stories. But people in their own ridings, there are a number of them who would like to be able to mark the transition in the monarchy. They won't be able to because they've decided ideologically to deprive their constituents of these metals. We offer them across Canada. It's really unfortunate for my Quebec friends. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-La Petite Patrie. Mr. Speaker, all the experts agree. Everyone agrees. The third link for cars is not a good project. It's too expensive. It will pollute, all of that to save 5 minutes in traffic. We know that for the Bloc and the Conservatives, it doesn't matter. They support it. But for the NDP, the third link is a no-go. A viable, green, and efficient solution is the tramway. Can the Liberals guarantee that not a single public cent, not a cent, will go to the third link, but instead, investments will go to environmentally friendly solutions for Quebec City like the tramway? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind my colleague from the NDP that this is a provincial discussion, a provincial project. What the Government of Canada has said is that we will always be there for transit projects. Why? Because that's the way of the future. The Conservatives want to eliminate transit projects. They don't believe in that. They don't believe in fighting climate change. They do absolutely nothing, whereas we support transit projects.
The Honourable Member from Nunavut.
For decades, Liberal and Conservative governments have ignored Indigenous people's needs. As a result, the infrastructure gap is at billions of dollars. The Liberals committed to closing the gap by 2030, but have committed less than 1%. This is just pennies. Indigenous peoples deserve the same housing, roads, and clean water as others. When will the Liberals follow through on their promises and close the gap so Indigenous peoples can thrive?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I agree with the member that this country has had a deplorable history of depriving Indigenous communities of the things that they need to thrive. In fact, since we've taken office and spending on Indigenous infrastructure and priorities has increased by 185%, Mr. Speaker, it speaks to the lack of effort by those Conservatives when they were in government to actually prioritize the needs of Indigenous children. We'll keep working to close that gap.
Hear, hear. I apologize to the Minister of Indigenous Relations, Indigenous Services. The Honourable Member from Thornhill.
Today, the government was forced to admit that the carbon tax will cost every single Canadian household more than $1,800 in lost GDP. That's a $30 billion secret they kept. Not once in anything ever released claiming that Canadians were somehow better off with the carbon tax did the minister include these devastating economic costs he knew existed, because it was more important for him to continue to spread the falsehood. Canadians deserve to know they deserve a minister who will tell the truth. If he's incapable of that, when's he going to resign?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources and Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I said earlier in this House, it is great to see that the Conservative Party of Canada now actually believes that economists are thoughtful and give good advice. 300 of them signed a letter that told people 8 out of 10 Canadian families do get more money back. I would encourage my honourable colleague to read that letter. And certainly, I would say that as we move forward, we must have a plan to address climate change, but we must do so in a manner that's affordable. That's exactly what carbon pricing does. That is something that we will continue to do, balancing the environment and the economy versus a party that actually has no plan for the environment whatsoever.
The Honourable Member from Thornhill.
This government that gagged the parliamentary budget officer that actually told Canadians the truth, and they cherry-picked portions of the data that supports their version of the truth, which makes them look even more guilty. If they truly believed that the carbon tax was helping, they would release the report. Instead, they kept a $30 billion secret from Canadians. The minister wanted to tell Canadians that paying more for gas, for groceries, for home heating, they would be better off. Misleading Canadians about $30 billion. I don't know how he looks anyone in the face. When will the Prime Minister actually fire him?
The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change.
How can the Conservative Party of Canada and those members who campaign to put in place a price on pollution, Mr. Speaker, can look anyone in the eyes is beyond me. How can they look anyone in the eyes and say, we're doing nothing to protect you against forest fires. We're doing nothing to protect you against hurricanes. We're doing nothing to protect you against flooding, Mr. Speaker. They have no plan for the economy. They have
The honourable member from Haldimand, Norfolk.
Mr. Speaker, this government tried so hard to hide the truth that the carbon tax was driving up the cost of everything in Canada. The parliamentary budget officer even had to call them out for blocking the release of their own economic impact report. They were literally forced to release the report, and now we all know that each Canadian family is losing at least $1,800 a year, and there's no rebate for that. So when will this Environment Minister finally resign for misleading Canadians?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources and Energy.
I would encourage my honourable colleagues on the other side of the House to actually go and talk to the PBO, to talk to economists, to talk to the 300 economists who have said 8 out of 10 Canadian families get more money back, and it's those that live on modest incomes that actually do the best. But I would say the collective amnesia that actually exists on the other side of the House is the pinnacle of hypocrisy. Every one of those members, including the member opposite who asked the question, campaigned on putting in place a price on pollution. It is hypocrisy.
The honourable member from Haldimand, Norfolk.
What is hypocritical, Mr. Speaker, is that even while their carbon tax was costing families more than $1,800 a year, even while they knew that over 2 million Canadian families per month were accessing the food banks, the Liberals continued to try to convince Canadians that they were better off for paying a higher carbon tax. A $1,800 tax is a lot of money to many Canadians. So, when will this Liberal government give Canadians back their money and fire the Environment Minister?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, this government is very proud of this Environment Minister who has put the first credible plan on the table in history to meet our Paris agreements, the Paris agreement that they want to rip up. No surprise, they've gotten all of the data today that shows that 8 out of 10 Canadians, Mr. Speaker, are better off. They're standing up for the more well-off in our society, just like they want to move on from what they did 2 days ago, which was stand up for the 0.13% of Canadians, not the people who draw a paycheck, make an honest living, go to work every day, and pay their taxes on time, Mr. Speaker.
I know all members are excited to be returning to their ridings for the weekend, but I'll ask if we could, to move things along quickly, I'll ask members only to take the floor when they have recognized by the chair.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable. $30.5 billion. $30.5 billion per year. That's what the Bloc Liberal tax is costing our economy every year. That's nearly $2,000 in cost per family that the Minister of the Environment wanted to hide. The Minister of the Environment knew it. He voluntarily hid the numbers from Canadians. After having voluntarily hid those numbers, will the Minister of the Environment have the courage to stand up before all Canadians and resign for not having told them everything? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons. Mr. Speaker, this member from Quebec will never, never do what the Minister of the Environment, also from Quebec, has done for Canada by presenting a credible plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and will respect the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement they want to withdraw from. It's no surprise that this member wants to withdraw us from a plan that favors 8 out of 10 Canadians and will help us reach our targets on climate change, Mr. Speaker. That member should be ashamed. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable. He's quite right. Never, ever will I hide $5 billion in costs for a carbon tax from Quebecers, because that's exactly what the Minister of the Environment has done. In his own documents, line 17, column AN, the carbon tax costs Quebecers $5 billion per year. The the tax supported by the Bloc Québécois. Mr. Speaker, after wanting to make fun of the parliamentary budget officer who was telling the truth, we know now. Will the Minister of the Environment step down? The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we will never be ashamed of being there for Canadians. Standing up for their rights to clean water, clean air, a high-quality environment, as opposed to the Conservatives. The ignorance of the Conservative Party on this issue, Mr. Speaker, is boundless. He just needs to look around him. If he speaks to the member seated behind him, she can explain that Quebec has its own carbon pricing system before the federal government did, and there are many Conservative members who voted in favour of carbon pricing at the provincial level. This is nonsense. The Honourable Member for Avignon, Lamitis, Matane, Matapédia. Remember the Border Services Agency's ArriveCAN application. It cost $60 million more than expected. Well, the agency has found a way to do worse with a new app, CARM. This app is supposed to register all imports at the border. They've now exceeded $300 million in cost overruns. And it's not over yet because CARM isn't working. Its implementation has been postponed. 2 apps, 2 money pits. How much more money can the agency throw out the window before the minister gets angry and cleans house? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
The Minister has stated we are aware of some of the industry-led concerns and we are working to make sure that this application is fully functioning. But Mr. Speaker, I want to reassure all Canadians that this app was created to modernize Canada's border system to ensure that tariffs are collected fairly and promptly. And Mr. Speaker, I should also note that this app was actually purchased and developed in 2010 under the Harper Conservatives, but it is something we are going to ensure is working properly.
The Honourable Member for Avignon, Lamitis, Matane, Matapédia. Worst of all, $300 million wasted later, CARM doesn't work. All imports into Canada will go through this app. But its implementation had to be postponed because the tests had failed, and the Border Services Agency is still unable to provide us with its contingency plans in case failures complicate billions of dollars of trade every day. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has signed a memorandum expressing its concerns. Imagine, even the Americans are afraid of the agency's incompetent management. Doesn't the minister find this embarrassing?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as I said earlier, we are going to ensure that the app is in good working order to ensure that Canada's border system and tariff collections are done in a modern and efficient and effective manner. It's something that we've needed to do to ensure that, as consultations with industry leaders as well, that this is where countries are going to ensure that our border services and our trade across borders is done in the most efficient way possible. We are continuing to work with CVSA to make sure that the processes are in place and that this app continues to work properly.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi, Bay James, Nunavik, EU. Speaking of the Border Services Agency, Quebecers were outraged to learn that large stores are destroying and throwing away spectacular quantities of unsold clothing, clothes that could have been donated to charity. But what they don't know is that this is encouraged by the federal agency. The Obsolete or Surplus Goods Program reimburses companies for customs taxes on destroyed goods, but not on donated goods. The Bloc wrote to the minister to alert him a month and a half ago, but got no response. Will he stop rewarding waste?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for that question. In fact, it's something that the minister has taken on seriously. He is working with finance to find the appropriate solution. Mr. Speaker, we want to ensure that collection and our tariff system, our customs and tariff system is working properly. But Mr. Speaker, the minister is well aware and we are looking into the matter.
The honourable member from Red Deer-Lacombe.
While Canadians are struggling to make ends meet, this Prime Minister put a gag order on the Parliamentary Budget Officer. Why? To prevent the PBO from releasing the full report exposing the true cost of the NDP Liberal carbon tax. We now know that the carbon tax will cost Canadians $30 billion in economic activity. That's over $1,800 for every family. So why continue to muzzle the PBO? Is it because the report is so damning it should cost the minister his job? When will the Prime Minister fire his truth-evading minister?
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Speaker, on this side of the House, I can tell you, and Canadians are proud of the Environment Minister. You know what? Because he is standing up for what is right for this country, Mr. Speaker. Whilst you have the climate deniers on the other side, they want to see the planet burning. We want to act for our children. We want to act for future generation. Mr. Speaker, 8 family out of 10. 8 out of 10. We know it's tough to go beyond 6 for these guys. It's just 6 plus 2. That gets to 8. 6 plus 4 gets to 10. 8 out of 10 will get more money, Mr. Speaker. We'll fight for Canadians at every step of the way. We'll fight for climate change, and we'll fight for our children, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Red Deer-Lacombe.
This Prime Minister's dirty $30 billion secret has been exposed. His carbon tax will cost Canadian families far more than they pay into it. That's money out of the pockets of people trying to feed their kids, heat their homes, pay their rent, and fill up their cars. So why are the Liberals so afraid of releasing the full report? Why is the budget officer muzzled? If the NDP Liberals won't end the cover-up, tell the truth, and release the full cost of the carbon tax, then the minister should resign. Why won't he get to it?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, there's no surprise these Conservatives want to move on from the fiasco of 2 days ago when they voted for the 0.13% of taxpayers and set aside the 99.87% of taxpayers who are not affected by a capital gains change. They want to stand up for people who've made $250,000 on investments in a given year, and they won't stand up for the electricians, the farmers, the janitors who earn a paycheck every week and do it honestly, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, a secret government report confirms what Canadians already know. The carbon tax is costing Canadians more than they're getting back. The report says the carbon tax is costing Canadians $30 billion a year. That's almost $2,000 a household per year. This government's not worth the cost. When will the Environment Minister resign?
The Honourable Minister for Indigenous Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And it looks like the Conservatives want to change the channel. I mean, yesterday they were all about talking about capital gains, fighting for the rich guy, you know, holding up plumbers and electricians. And, well, they didn't actually talk about waitresses or school bus drivers, and talking about how, you know, they're fighting for the little guy. On this side, we know that those Conservatives don't care about people that are pulling a paycheck, but rather they're focused on their ultra-rich friends.
The honourable member from Hamilton Centre.
Yesterday, when the Minister of Labour was asked about supporting the bargaining rights of the Teamsters rail workers, he boasted about the government's success rate in trampling on the workers' rights to negotiating a fair deal. The Liberals say they support workers, but then they pull the rug out from under them when they try to negotiate. So instead of forcing a pathway towards binding arbitration on the rail workers, will the Minister of Labour respect the collective bargaining rights of the Teamsters and support their call to stagger negotiations in order to avoid a rail shutdown?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Labour.
This government has had the back of workers from the get-go. First thing that we ever did was reverse the most anti-union legislation ever created in this House of Commons by the Conservative government. And then, further, we went on to do replacement worker legislation. And I'm pleased that that passed. Right now, the minister was absolutely correct. There are negotiations. They're at the table. Mediators, we believe in our mediators that have a 96% success rate. We're confident in the collective bargaining, and we know that the best deals are made at the table, and we encourage those conversations to continue.
The honourable member from Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, today the UN released their annual report on children in armed conflict. The report verifies cases of war crimes against children in Gaza, West Bank, and Israel is more than anywhere else in the world. It is an appalling and alarming confirmation of the grave violations taking place. Mr. Speaker, children are dying and the Liberals are failing them. When? What date will the government finally impose sanctions on those responsible for violence against children, including Netanyahu's war cabinet?
Hear, hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister for Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I've said it many times in this House, the situation in Gaza is catastrophic. Too many children, too many women have died, and that is why the violence must stop. That is why we need a ceasefire now. That's why hostages must be released. That's why civilians must be protected. And that's why humanitarian aid needs to get into Gaza. We need to make sure that both parties support the Biden proposal. The Prime Minister and G7 prime ministers and leaders are in Italy as we speak, and I really hope that we can bring back peace to the Middle East. Thank you.
The honourable member from Dartmouth, Cole Harbour.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's border service employees deliver important services that ensure Canadians are safe, secure, and have timely access to goods coming from other countries. It's no secret that Canada's public servants have seen previous Conservative governments cut their jobs, cut services, instead of giving them the respect that they deserve, by reaching deals at the table that are fair for public servants and reasonable for Canadian taxpayers. Could the President of the Treasury Board share an update on her work to ensure fair deals are made with our border services officers to maintain Canada's border security while ensuring respect for the work of our public servants?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for that question, and this week showed that the best deals are reached at the table and the collective bargaining process works. The Canada Border Services Agency employees keep our country safe every single day, and I am pleased to announce in this House that a tentative agreement has been reached that is fair for Canadian taxpayers and reasonable for public servants. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we will always stand up for public service employees, and we thank them for their work every single day in protecting our country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Cypress Hills, Grasslands.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, he has developed an extreme obsession with taxing farmers. First it was the carbon tax, now it's the capital gains tax increase. That means that a 74-year-old farmer back home who has worked his whole life will struggle to pay off his debts and enjoy his retirement. And it makes things even harder for the next generation of farm families. Without the family farm, big multinational conglomerates will take over. How is that fair for Canadians?
Yeah!
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative leader doesn't stand with workers, and he certainly does not stand with Canada's farmers. It's shameful the leader of the Conservatives hides behind farmers and workers to justify his opposition to our plan for tax fairness. We are, in fact, increasing the capital gains sheltering for farmers by boosting the lifetime exemption for qualified farming properties to $1.25 million per owner. And when combined with the $250,000 threshold, farmers are going to be better off. We are standing up on this side of the House for Canada's agriculture. They're standing up for the 0.13%, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Cypress Hills, Grasslands.
Well, Mr. Speaker, farmers are supposed to feed families, not the Prime Minister's extreme obsessions. Right. This new tax is devastating for everyone from farm to table. Canada's food professor said yesterday to suggest that this change only affects a minimal number of Canadians is misleading. I think it actually affects a lot of businesses, including in the agri-food sector, and I would start with farmers. Mr. Speaker, we need to keep family farms alive, but now they're under attack by these Liberals. How is that fair, and how can the Ag Minister sit quietly and let this happen?
Yeah.
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition hasn't seen a hay baler or the top of a combine in his life. And what we've done is over here is made it better for farmers by increasing the lifetime exemption and extending new provisions to farmers to ensure that that capital gains do not affect them. Farmers will in fact be better off under this plan for tax fairness, just like waitresses, just like airline stewardesses, just like janitors, just like electricians, just like plumbers, just like 99.87% of Canadians, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, after 9 years, this government and its Bloc Québécois partners have found a new way to hurt our farming sector by voting this week to increase capital gains taxes. While one farming family out of 5 isn't able to pay back their debts, this punitive tax measure will make it even harder for them to sell their lands or transfer them to a family member. Farmers weren't even consulted. So how does this measure make the situation more fair for farmers? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition doesn't know how to milk a cow, and he doesn't know how to protect farmers. We've put new limits in place, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that farmers are better treated under our plan because there's an increased exemption for farmers. We know that the next generation of farmers is a major issue in Canada, and I would encourage the member to get better informed because farmers will do better under this Liberal plan. The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, once again, proof that this government is completely disconnected, and I've been milking cows for my entire life. I can confirm that in committee, the Minister of Agriculture admitted that his department was not consulted on this new tax. Many owners of small and medium-sized businesses in my riding have also reached out to me over the last couple of weeks, like Louis from Saint-Joseph, who is going to be very hardly affected by this change when he transfers his business to his daughter. The Liberals and the Bloc are not worth the cost. So, once again, how is this fair? The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, what Canadians understand, and particularly farmers in Quebec, is fairness. In the last federal budget from our government, Mr. Speaker, it was an intergenerational fairness budget to allow us to invest in the next generation, to allow us to invest in future businesses, Mr. Speaker, so that we can invest in our seniors as well. But the Conservatives, surprise, surprise, have voted against tax fairness, Mr. Speaker. I know that farmers have a big heart. I know that farmers are thinking about the next generation. I know that farmers want to have a better Canada. The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Let's come back to Chalk River and the nuclear waste dump along the Ottawa River. At the end of March, Canadian Nuclear Laboratories admitted having spilled toxic wastewater into the river. Mr. Speaker, given that there's a lot of people speaking on both sides of the House, I would ask for maybe a call for silence. Yes. I know that spirits are high today, but I would ask members please to not have conversation and dialogue across the aisle. I would invite the minister and the opposition House Leader, please, to I would invite the two House Leaders, please, to if you want to have a dialogue, you can please go outside the House. I would invite the Honourable Member for Repentigny to start her question from the top. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So let's go back to Chalk River and the nuclear waste dump along the Ottawa River. At the end of March, Canadian Nuclear Laboratories admitted spilling toxic wastewater into the river. This is water with acute lethality, which means that the water would kill half the fish that swim through it over a 4-day period. We know that many experts warned about risks of contamination by radioactive substances, but 3 months later, despite our questions, neither CNL nor Environment Canada has told us what contaminant is in the wastewater. Was it radioactive? Yes or no? The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadian Nuclear Laboratories have confirmed that the wastewater is not linked to radioactive contaminants and do not present any threat to the public. We will continue to work to ensure that Canadian nuclear laboratories are compliant with regulations, but there is no radioactive substance in that water. The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. The Kepawak Anishinaabe First Nation in my riding has presented a list of demands supported by the Bloc Québécois and 140 municipalities. It's calling for an inquiry in consultation with Indigenous people, which has not been done on the Chalk River file. It's also calling for transparency. CNL knew in February that toxic wastewater was being spilled, but it was only revealed at the end of March. How can the federal government tolerate that a laboratory which has problems with contaminated wastewater spills and transparency, how can they be allowed to manage a nuclear waste dump along the Ottawa River? The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources and Energy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've already said, CNL confirmed that the wastewater is not connected to radioactive contaminants and do not represent any threat to the public. And the government will continue to monitor the Ottawa River and have noted that there has been no obvious damage. The public and in the environmental safety remain our absolute priority.
The Honourable Member from Lennox, Hastings and Addington.
Over 6 million Canadians do not have access to a family doctor. According to the Commonwealth Fund, after 9 years of this Liberal NDP government, the number of Canadians without access to a regular care provider has doubled. And what is this government's solution to the doctor shortage? Tax them out of the country. This healthcare killing tax on healthcare providers will force them to practice elsewhere, making the doctor shortage crisis even worse. Mr. Speaker, how is that fair? How many communities will go without doctors because they are leaving Canada due to this Prime Minister's new tax?
Yeah!
The Honourable Minister of Health.
It's interesting, Mr. Speaker. The only time the Conservatives have asked about health care or a shortage of doctors in this House is when there was a proposal to create a more fair tax system that asked the 0.13% to pay a little bit more. Suddenly now they're interested in health care. But you know what's not going to help add doctors? Conservative cuts. The $200 billion that we've invested with 26 health agreements in every province and every territory is making sure we see progress every day in our health system. From dental care to pharmacare to primary care. And what's going to stop that dead in its tracks is the cuts the Conservatives want to bring. And we're here to make sure they don't get to do it.
The Honourable Member from Hastings, Lennox and Addington.
The Liberals are scrambling and their facts do not add up. Kneecapping our healthcare providers to pay for this government's credit card bill is bad fiscal policy and it's bad healthcare policy. The key to sound, robust healthcare system is preventative medicine, ensuring that Canadians get timely access to healthcare that they need. This not only saves lives, Mr. Speaker, it saves government money. Increasing the tax burden on doctors who carry out this work will only force doctors out of the country. Mr. Speaker, when will this pompous Prime Minister finally listen to the thousands of people on wait lists?
As the Honourable Member is a well-respected member of the House, I'm just going to ask her very quickly just to withdraw that one word because it does refer to an individual member.
I'll withdraw, thank you.
And I thank the Honourable Member for doing so. The Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, Mr. Speaker, when you're out of arguments, you turn to insults. And asking the 0.13% to pay a little bit more so that we can have fairness and equity in our tax system, making sure that a nurse doesn't pay a higher marginal rate of tax than a millionaire. Mr. Speaker, that is fundamentally unfair. But you know what? We'll kneecap our healthcare system, Mr. Speaker. 200,000 seniors now in just 6 weeks have got dental care. The Conservatives want to take that away. Pharmacare, making sure that a diabetes patient gets the medicine that they need. They want to cut that, Mr. Speaker. That will kneecap our healthcare system. We will not allow that to happen.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, it's unfortunate that the Minister of Health does not realize that after 9 years there's a major historic crisis. There's a lack of doctors in Canada under this government. Now, in changing the tax rules, this government is having an impact on Canadians. In this economic chaos that they've created, the Liberals have decided to increase the capital gains tax. They say that they want rich people to pay more, but that's camouflage, Mr. Speaker. The list of Canadians without a doctor is going to go up, not go down, because doctors are going to leave. In Quebec, already 2.3 million people don't have a family doctor. What does the Minister of Health say? The Honourable Minister of Health. Well, I can say clearly, Mr. Speaker, that a more fair, a more equitable system where a nurse doesn't have to pay a higher tax rate than somebody who has millions and millions of dollars, that's just logical. And it's absolutely clear that the thing that is threatening our health care is the cuts in essential investments in improving our healthcare system. And, Mr. Speaker, we are going to protect our healthcare system. That is our goal. The Honourable Member for Vaudreuil-Soulanges. Mr. Speaker, after a decade of chronic underfunding from the Conservative government, our government has made historic investments in housing and infrastructure for communities from coast to coast to coast. Earlier this week, our government concluded a $2.8 billion agreement with Quebec, which will help municipalities revitalize critical infrastructure and support housing projects through the fund. The Canada Community Development Fund. Can the Minister please explain how this funding will help communities across Quebec build more housing more quickly? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague from Vaudreuil-Soulanges, who understands the extent to which it's essential to invest in our community infrastructure and in housing for Quebecers and Canadians across the country. The recent agreement with Quebec, which guarantees $2.8 billion over the next 5 years, including $535 million this year to help build housing and also build that housing more quickly, is good news. Meanwhile, the Leader of the Opposition is finding excuses to fight tax fairness. We will continue to deliver help so that all Canadians and their families can get ahead. We have a plan to help build housing in Quebec. They have a plan to insult local leaders, create conflict, and build no.
The Honourable Member from Durham.
Mr. Speaker, last week we learned that Canadian rents are at an all-time high, averaging $2,200 a month. And it's only going to get worse. The Canadian Federation of Apartment Associations says the new Liberal capital gains tax will discourage construction of new rental homes. The NDP Liberal government is crushing the prospect of bringing new rental units into our communities. What part of that says generational fairness?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, we say that the Conservatives don't care, and here's proof. This tax change would allow for more revenue to be directed to childcare, pharmacare, dental care, and measures to address the housing crisis. In fact, I direct the new member, and he is a new member, to look at their housing plan, which actually would tax home builders. So today when he raises concerns about home building and taxation, it's their plan that's the problem, Mr. Speaker. We have a plan. We're going to put in place that plan. We're going to solve the housing crisis.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member from Durham.
Mr. Speaker, the president of the real estate company RE/MAX agrees that the Liberals' spin on their new tax hikes are bogus. I'd like to quote him, if I might. The federal government has been vocal about this only targeting the wealthiest of the wealthy. It's just not true. Wow. I think that is going to penalize more average Canadians than were intended. So my question is very simple. When will this government take the housing crisis seriously and stop letting down an entire generation of Canadians?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, this government has put in place a policy to lift GST off of the construction of purpose-built rentals. They want to maintain GST on the construction of purpose-built rentals. You won't get more apartments built that way, something that was verified at the House of Commons committee responsible for housing just a few days ago when the Conservatives raised this point. Furthermore, if he wants to talk quotes, he can go back to the proceedings of the Federal Finance Committee meeting a few months ago when their housing plan was studied by the Department of Finance that showed that their plan will lead to less homes built, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, the housing crisis, which is directly caused by Liberal incompetence, is affecting the entire country, and the Liberal Bloc coalition believes that taxing honest home builders is going to fix the situation. But it's simple. If you tax home builders, there are going to be fewer homes built, and the price of housing is going to go up. It's unfair and counterproductive. Mr. Speaker, how is it fair to increase taxes on housing if you want to build more houses? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, a little bit of pedagogy for the member who probably didn't read the Conservative Party's own plan when it comes to rental housing. Their position, believe it or not, is to keep GST on construction projects for purpose-built rental housing. Is unbelievable, but true, Mr. Speaker. I've been talking to people in my community, people who are building apartment buildings, and they say it makes the difference between profitability and the non-viability of projects. The Conservatives want to put GST back on building rental housing.
The Honourable Member from Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam.
Here. Mr. Speaker, while the Conservative leader attacks our BC mayors, we're working with them to build more housing faster. The Housing Accelerator Fund is investing in the most ambitious places to solve the housing crisis and deliver fairness for every generation. This includes in my community, where we are investing over $25 million to help the City of Coquitlam fast-track thousands of new homes, including purpose-built rentals. Can the Minister of Energy update us on these investments to get more homes built in his community and mine?
Good. The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources and Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I certainly want to thank the member for Coquitlam for his advocacy and focus on getting more homes built faster. The Housing Accelerator Fund is indeed unlocking ambitious action on solving the housing crisis, including in my riding of North Vancouver, where a recent $18 million investment will spur the construction of thousands of homes, very much including renters. Across Canada and BC, hundreds of thousands of new homes are being fast-tracked thanks to investments like these. While the Conservative leader is vowing to rip up these vital agreements, we are working on building homes for the middle class.
The Honourable Member from South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Mr. Speaker, the spotted owl is one of Canada's most endangered species, with only one wild-born owl left in the country on the Spuzzum First Nation territory near Hope, BC. The Minister of Environment has the power to protect this species under the Species at Risk Act, but he took so long to make a recommendation on that action that a federal judge found he broke the law. So why did the Liberals delay protecting this endangered species and then refuse to take action?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable colleague for his question and his advocacy for environmental and climate change issues. I would like to remind him that just a few months ago, we signed an historic agreement with all of the BC First Nations, the Government of BC and the federal government, $1 billion for nature protection to help the province achieve the goals that we have in Canada to protect at least 30% of our lands and water. We will continue working with our partners, whether they be First Nations, the Government of BC, to ensure that we can protect more species and more habitat. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member from Spadina, Fort York.
Mr. Speaker, reports confirm what everyone knows. This out-of-touch government and this 23 missing in action Toronto MPs seem to have missed, which is Torontonians are struggling. The Liberals have a new buzzword to gloss over their mismanagement. It's called fairness. Mr. Speaker, there's nothing fair in having more unemployed in Toronto than all of Quebec. Excluding the pandemic, unemployment is the highest since 2015 when the architects of incompetence stumbled into power. Over 1.26 million Canadians have missed a mortgage or credit card payment in first quarter 2024. Mr. Speaker, when the banks call, do Liberals advise Canadians to just say boo-hoo, get over it?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Innovation.
This government has done more to support our local economies than any government that I've ever seen in Canadian history. We're stimulating jobs and increasing productivity. We've made major investment in the research ecosystem within our economy that's promoting innovation and creating more jobs for a sustainable future. I couldn't be more proud of this government. I know the member over there is training to become a member of the Conservative Party. I just hope the leader of the official opposition will finally accept him.
This puts an end to question period. I see the honourable member for order, please. Order. I see that the honourable member for Drummond is rising for a point of order. Mr. Speaker, there's been consultations between parties, and I think that you'll find that there is unanimous consent for the following motion. That the House highlight the exceptional career of Paul Arcand, that it recognise his rigorous work and his contribution to quality information accessible to all, and to thank him for his many years of service. All those opposed to what the honourable member has moved will please say nay. Agreed. The House has heard the terms of the motion. All those against the motion will please say nay. Carried. I see that the honourable member
Churchill Kawatanakoski is rising on a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, there have been consultations between parties, and if you seek it, I believe you will find unanimous consent for the following motion. That given that 50 years ago the Republic of Cyprus was invaded by Turkey in July and August 1974, resulting in the illegal occupation of 36% of Cyprus and the displacement of more than 150,000 Cypriots, Canada has condemned the invasion, as has the world community, including the United Nations, through Resolution 360 of the UN Security Council. Canada played a key role as a peacekeeper in Cyprus between 1964 and 1993. That this House pay tribute to the 33,000 Canadian soldiers who put their lives on the line and honor the memory of the 28 Canadian soldiers who died during the deployment, including during the invasion. And that this House reiterate its condemnation of the invasion of Cyprus and calls on all parties to respect international law and the illegal occupation and act to ensure the reunification of the Republic of Cyprus.
All those opposed to the honourable member moving the motion will please say nay. Agreed. The House has heard the terms of the motion. All those opposed to the motion will please say nay. Carried.
The honourable member for Rivière du Nord is rising on a point of order. Mr. Speaker, there's been consultation between the parties, and I think you'll note that there is unanimous consent. Unfortunately, I would like to inform the honourable member that I've already heard some nays. So there is no unanimous consent. Once again, it raises a point that I have to reiterate very often. It's very important to consult other parties to actually get unanimous consent so that we can use our members' time in an efficient way.
It being 3:18 rather, pursuant to order made on Wednesday, June 12, 2024, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion at the third reading stage of Bill C-70. Call in the members. The question is as follows. Monsieur Leblanc.
Mr. Leblanc, seconded by Mr. Duclos, moved that Bill C-70, an act respecting countering foreign interference, be now read a third time and do pass. The 10-minute period for members voting electronically has started, and the House will now proceed to the vote for members participating in person. All those in favour of the motion will please rise.
Monsieur McKinnon-Gatineau.
Monsieur McKinnon-Gatineau.
Monsieur Champagne.
Monsieur Champagne.
Miss Annan.
Miss Annan.
Monsieur Guilbeault.
Monsieur Guilbeault.
Miss Sachs.
Miss Sachs.
Mr. Casey.
Mr. Casey.
Monsieur Vandal.
Monsieur Vandal.
Miss Cara.
Miss Cara.
Miss Sahota.
Miss Sahota.
Miss Jazik.
Miss Jazik.
Miss Jones.
Miss Jones.
Mr. Fragiscatos.
Mr. Fragiscatos.